Welcome to Careers Under Construction. I'm Justice Peterson. On this episode, we speak to Will Goodon, Minister of Housing and Property Management for the Manitoba Métis Federation. Will grew up a bush kid in Turtle Mountains, learning to hunt, trap, and fish from his family. And later, he made legal history when he fought a 4-year court battle over Métis harvesting rights and won. We talk about truth and reconciliation and how he's tackling Manitoba's housing crisis with projects like seniors' homes, the first-time homebuyer programs, and even the Métis version of the Ronald McDonald House. Please enjoy Will Goodon. Well, one of the first things I wanted to ask you about was the story that you put in your questionnaire about how you went hunting. I think it was, you said you shot a duck, and then you were like fined by the conservation officers, and the process you went through to appeal that. Can you tell me that story?
Yeah, absolutely. For all my life, I grew up in the Turtle Mountains. We called it the bush.
Okay.
It was just all a bunch of Métis families that lived up in the bush. There was, most schools in the rural areas have two different kinds of kids. You got town kids and farm kids. We had town kids, farm kids, and bush kids, and we were all Métis.
Right.
And I grew up learning how to hunt, trap, fish, all the things from my dad, from my uncles. And normally we would, buy a license and go hunting deer or ducks or whatever. But all along there's just been this thought process back in the day that we are Indigenous. We're, the word Aboriginal was used at the time and in the Constitution, and we should have the right to hunt. And some of this stuff was going through the courts at the time, and but in Manitoba there was a pushback, and it was they wouldn't recognize us.
So back then you still needed to have like a specific hunting license?
Yeah, you needed your provincially issued a license from the province.
Right.
For waterfowl, you need the little stamp from Canada, and you need the license from Manitoba. And that's okay. That's fair. It wasn't really expensive, and we just enjoyed going out in the bush, and I just loved hanging out with my dad and my uncles. And anyway, so this was coming down the pipe, and we had, I was working for the MMF already by that time, and we had done something called the Commission for the Laws of the Hunt. And we took some elders, we took some folks who were living on the land, and we traveled all around Manitoba. And we went to communities, 30, 40 different communities, had an elders conference, talked about this issue. Because one of the things that we're really wanting to push forward, and it was the elders and it was the people who were out on the land that said this: we can't just have hunting rights or harvesting rights without any structure around it. We still, shouldn't be shooting animals in the spring when they're giving birth to the babies. We should have a limit. You can't just go out and shoot 10 moose. That's not right. That's not the way that we're raised. That's not the way our ancestors thought. In fact, we had the laws of the buffalo hunt back in the day where it was strict. There was a captain of the hunt that was elected, and there were laws that were laid down every day, like don't be doing anything stupid, otherwise you're going to be cut out of the hunt.
Right.
And so we put together through this commission laws, our own laws, made by our hunters, our fishers, our trappers, the people who are out harvesting, our elders. And so we put this thing together. We had an identification system, which was the card. And, that sounded, it looks good. There was a case coming through the Supreme Court at the time, around the same time, in Ontario. And there's issues around that, around identity and stuff. We won't get into it. But then I was standing at our assembly, and I had was standing beside on the stage with then Premier Gary Dewar, and he said to the crowd, there's like 2,000 or 3,000 people there, "We will respect your rights." Okay, cool. So I went back to my local. I was chair of my local in Boise at the time. I said, "Look, guys, the premier says, this." well, that's not what the CEOs are saying. So I went and talked to the CEO. And as it happened, I had just gone out hunting the night before, had a couple ducks in my truck. And so I talked to him, and he said, yeah, like my boss hasn't told me anything different. I said, so you're saying that if I had a duck right now that I shot last night without a provincial license, that you would charge me? He said, yes. I said, well, okay, I think we need to do this. And, I didn't go looking to get charged, but, when you got politicians saying one thing and not doing the other thing, we went to court for 4.5 years, and wow. I was found not guilty, and that basically built what we have today, which is a structure across most of Manitoba, where, again, we follow our laws. You can get 2 deer, 1 moose. You can only have, I think, 50 pounds of fish in your possession. So it's not like we're going out and using it and then selling it and
right.
profiting from. This is for our own kitchen tables.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way it was designed, and that's the way we've always lived,
Awesome.
back in the day. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was it like when you were found not guilty, going through 4.5 years
Yeah.
of this appeal?
Yeah.
What did it mean for you, and then also just the broader Métis Nation?
Yeah, no, it meant a lot to everybody here in Manitoba. It took a little while for the province to come on board. Thankfully, I think there was a shuffle in there, and Gord McIntosh was the Minister, I think, of Justice at the time, and he wanted to find a way forward, and I think he was extremely instrumental. We had our folks, he had his folks, and they came together and they came up with something. But it was, it was a huge victory, celebration. There's a lot of people standing outside the Brandon courthouse. It was in Brandon where the judge was making his decision, and we had a lot of witnesses, my family, my dad, my uncles, but then also lots of historians. We had some reports that were commissioned, and it just helped to solidify how and where we've been, since the beginning of our nation, that we're here and we practice and we're recognized in the Constitution. So those things all came together really, really well.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's super powerful that you were part of that in the early stages.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one quick thing because at the time, they had, I gave them my duck,
right,
and they kept it. And at the end of, near in the middle of the trial, I was asking, where is this? Well, apparently they lost it. And so I've been asking every premier since then, where's my duck? Gary Dewar and Selinger, Pallister, all of them. And they don't know where my duck is, and I still want my duck back or want something back, right? Yeah.
20 years later, right?
Yeah.
That's funny. So you mentioned you were with the MMF then.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're the Minister of Housing
Yes.
for Manitoba. And this is a role that you had to get elected for, right? You're not appointed to this.
That's correct, yeah. So, I've been working on and off with the MMF since 1996. It was actually the year before President Chartrand was elected. Just real quickly, there was 3 people working at the MMF at the time. Now I think there's around 1,300 folks working there. So I was working there when it was tough and lean times. But yeah, so a lot of the things I did was just whatever needed to get done. And almost 12 years ago now, 11 years, I was elected in my region, which is the Southwest.
Okay.
Been living out there. Well, I lived out there my whole life. I lived here in Winnipeg for a few years for work. But
what did you first get elected?
Yeah,
because it wasn't the Minister of Housing, right?
No, so that's it's similar to an MLA. Getting elected for a constituency,
right?
And then the Premier will appoint them to cabinet. So I haven't been elected as Minister of Housing. I've been elected as a regional representative from the Southwest region.
Okay.
And then, we have a meeting or two. The president, similar to the premier, will look around, see who he wants on his team. And, at that time, I think it was only 2 or 3 months after the election, He made his cabinet, and I was Minister of Housing and Property Management. And since then, he's also added one smaller, well, I don't know if it's small, but identity protection is another big issue that's happening these days, where people are pretending to be Métis, pretending to be First Nations, pretending to be Inuit. And it's such an issue that the president has appointed me to lead that file as well. But of course, housing is the big one. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. I've never heard of that, of people like pretending to be Métis or Indigenous.
Yeah.
What types of like issues come up with that?
Yeah, so you may have heard in the news where there's academics who pretend to be Indigenous in order to get a job. That's happened at the University of Saskatchewan. It's happening right now at the University of Winnipeg. I don't know if you remember, a few years ago there was the author Joseph Boyden who pretended to be Indigenous. It was found out that he wasn't. There was those two students. Indian students from Toronto who pretended to be Inuit, and they got funding, and now they have law degrees because of that. So, because in the past, it wasn't
fact checked.
Well, 20, 30, 40 years ago, or back in my dad's day, nobody wanted to be Indigenous because racism was rampant. You were called horrible names. You couldn't get jobs. Now it's kind of turned around a little bit, so that there's opportunities to go to school. There's opportunities to get jobs in government or other areas, and so people are seeing these opportunities and want to take a shortcut. And to me, that's horrible. Pretending to be somebody else. But it happens. This world is full of people who want to take advantage of the system, right?
Yeah. I guess especially if there's funding and grants and money on the table for them to have access to.
Exactly.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, well, so Minister of Housing is the main role in property management, you said.
Right.
So obviously, like, housing has been such a hot topic over the last few years, right? Like, Canada's in a bit of a housing crisis. Right. So what have you seen as the biggest challenges as the Minister of Housing in your role, and like, how are we planning to overcome those challenges?
Yeah, I'm going to go back in time a little bit here because, when we joined Canada, when Manitoba joined Confederation, we were given certain promises, and those promises weren't kept. That's where our land claims case went in, and we won that, and we're still working on, that settlement. But, and then we talked about racism and stuff that happened back in the 20s and 30s, and we were pushed off the land. There was fraud that was very rampant throughout, our homeland, mostly Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta. And at one point, we had to squat, and the only lands that were available were on the road allowances. Every mile, there was a section, a piece of property that was between the lands that was set aside for roads that would eventually be built. And so our people were actually called the road allowance people. They would find old pieces of wood, tar paper, and put these houses together. Housing, a lack of good housing has been an issue for our Red River Métis for generations. Back in 1967, when the MMF was first, developed, it became an entity. Housing was probably the number one issue because in our communities, people lived in horrible conditions. In other communities, there was a catching up. There was people moving forward, but in our communities, we were sort of left behind. We were put in areas that nobody else wanted. We had to, like I said, squat on certain areas. That's where my grandparents, they had to squat on pieces of property. My dad grew up in a house that had a dirt floor and a sod roof, and when it rained, they had 20 pails around there, and the only dry place that he told me him and his sister would go was under the bed. So housing has been a huge issue for us, going back over 50 years, or probably 100 years, maybe even longer than that. And, one of the things that is, I think, important to understand is that we've never had that relationship where we could have the ability to address those issues in our communities. Like who should know better about how Métis communities, what their needs and wants are in terms of housing than the Métis. Like
Right.
we probably know better than someone from sitting in an office in Ottawa.
Right.
In 2017, there was a movement by the federal government, but then in 2018 there was what they call the distinctions-based housing process. So distinctions-based means it's not just a pan-Indigenous issue. So this is a block of funding for First Nations. This is a block of funding for Inuit, and this is a block of funding for Métis.
Okay.
And so now we had certainty. There at the time it was a substantial amount of money, but we had certainty. We could plan. It was a 10-year agreement. We could start planning. And in doing so, we needed to talk to our citizens. And, there's lots of need out there. Obviously, there's student housing, there's rental subsidies, but seniors housing was the number one issue. And that's in our culture something that we take very seriously is making sure that our seniors are safe, they're protected, they're living in conditions that are proper, are safe, are warm and dry. And so that's what we've been really focusing on for the first several years. That's something that I think we will continue to work on. We've been doing some reach out to the Prime Minister, and doing some reach out to the new Minister of Housing, and showcasing the successes that we've had.
Right.
And when you've got those successes, that it makes your partners want to invest in you even more so. Knock on wood, that we will continue to make some even bigger steps in the next few years here.
Wow. So you mentioned that you've had a few, like obviously probably more than a few, but many success stories.
Yeah.
Can you share one of those with us? Like anything that in particular that comes to mind?
Yeah, as far as the the construction side of things, like there's been a few things that have been happening. Actually, I'm going to share a couple.
Sure.
But in Selkirk, we recently finished a 49-unit apartment complex for seniors and elders. It is right on the river. You can see it as you come across the bridge from East Selkirk. It has a pattern of our Métis sash on the outside. I hear stories about people who are so proud of the building and where it is and what it means to them. We want to do. We're in the process of continuing that on a property on Henderson Highway. We also have a property on Portage Avenue that we want to move forward on, and then there's other smaller urban centers like Brandon and Portage and Thompson that also have those needs as well. But I wanted to mention one other quick.
Go on with that one. But me and Cass actually toured that one you're mentioning in Selkirk when it was under construction. It was gorgeous. We walked through it, I think, right as they were finishing the drywall stage on the interior, but all the exterior had been done already. Yeah. And man, it was a gorgeous building.
Yeah. And
and you said right on the river,
right on the river, and
we were up on the rooftop, amazing views.
One of the things that we have found is partnerships with local governments, being of course, funding from the federal government, funding from the province, but it's the local government and their willingness to partner. They may not bring the millions of dollars to the table, but they can either help a project go ahead, or they can make the project just stall. And
they can cut through that red tape.
Yeah, so the city of Selkirk has been amazing. Everywhere we go, the ones that really have those successes is where you've got that local government buying in. At this point, we're getting more phone calls of people wanting us to build in their communities than we can actually do. But it is, people can talk, but when the rubber hits the road and they need to, have a meeting and look at the issue and decide yay or nay on something that will help the project move forward. That's where we really, I think, is one of the biggest things that's out there. Talking to municipalities, talking to, some of the smaller towns and the bigger towns, and that really works. Yeah. Yeah, I just want to real quickly, because this one's a kind of a little pet project of mine. Back, I said I started back with the MMF back in '96.
Yep.
President Chartrand ran for president in 1997. Helped with his campaign, and I remember we were doing his campaign brochures, and one of the issues was at that time was something like a Ronald McDonald House. So as we know, Ronald McDonald House does amazing work. People who are coming from rural areas, their families are ripped apart because their children might be sick. It could be cancer. It could be other things. And but it's a place where you can have safety if you're 8 hours from your house. We went through that a little bit. My son, who's now an emergency room doc in Winnipeg, he had leukemia when he was 2.5, and I remember those days. Trying, living at the hospital basically, and not even knowing what's going on out there. And we were lucky; we had family to wrap around us. But when you're hours and hours away, hundreds of miles away, that isn't always the case. So about, I'm going to say 5 or 6 years ago, I was involved with a program, a federal program. It was Indigenous Innovation Homes Initiative, and we were able to access some funding from there. And we just recently, construction was finished. I think it was last fall. We actually it hasn't been opened yet because we were using it for wildfire evacuees this year. But it's called Michif Manor. Michif is the language that our Métis people speak, and it is like a Ronald McDonald House for people who are coming from out of town. There's culturally appropriate things that they've got there. There's, they can cook their own food. There's other families that they can lean on and support. Obviously, staff that can also wrap around with the culture and whatever needs are there. It's right across from Health Science Center on Notre Dame. So yeah, it is a little personal for me, that one. I remember President Chartrand wanting and talking about it, back in 1997, and to be able to find that funding and make it a reality, it was a big thing for us and for me personally too.
Yeah, no doubt. That's very impactful. Me and my wife actually used to volunteer at the Ronald McDonald House for years.
Yeah.
And the one right in the Health Science Center, like kind of the wing there. This is before they built the house.
Yeah.
Right? They had it in the hospital.
Right.
And they only had 3, maybe 4 bedrooms, I think, there.
Yeah.
And the wait list was always
super
long,
yeah.
Right? And the problem with that is people need it now, right?
Yeah.
They don't need it in 2 years and the wait list is open.
Yeah.
So the fact that you were able to secure that funding and build something that's such a good contribution to the Métis people, that's amazing, because I'm sure it's getting use.
Yeah,
probably from day one.
And it will. And there's no doubt that it is going to, it's hard to imagine that it won't save lives, literally save lives. And that's, when we think about some of the things that we do as political leaders, that's the kind of thing that is so impactful, because that you made a difference on something like that. There's, you're building, some houses for families, and the families need them, but they could probably, find it, down the street somewhere else. But this one here is immediately impactful, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's amazing, and a legacy project.
Yeah,
right. Like that's the type of thing that people are going to be staying at it's going to be saving lives.
Yeah.
Way after we're gone.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
It's going to last a long time. So that's great. I wanted to go back to the housing. Like we had talked about the seniors housing, the one in Selkirk, Henderson Highway. You said another property on Portage Ave. I think you said those are all seniors.
Yeah.
But then you're also doing implementing programs
Right.
that are for like accessibility.
Yeah.
Right. Like the first time home purchaser program. And then there's, I can't remember the name of it, but it's like a home repairs program as well. Right. What's that one again?
So the home repairs program, we were trying to think of an acronym, and my staff came up with HELP. Home Enhancement Loan Program. So it's a forgivable loan. It's $18,000 in the south, and we know that costs are way higher in the north, so there's $25,000 available in the north. So there's two things that we're doing there. A lot of the folks who are older, have been in their home for a while, just need some upgrades, whether it's some energy efficiency, whether it's, they need a different bathroom because of their accessibility needs at the time, or some insulation, a new roof. Those kinds of things will allow them to stay in their home an extra 5, 10, 15 years. So you're investing in these homes, and so the need for them to be elsewhere is being mitigated for that short amount of time. And plus you're investing in their home, and it becomes more valuable for them. So that is one thing that we've absolutely found. And the idea really came up, it was a few years ago, and there was a couple of programs that the province was running, the RAP and ERP, the Emergency Repair Program, and the residential, I can't remember the name of it exactly, but they canceled these two programs. There wasn't a lot of money in there, but a lot of people, and this was not just for Métis, this was for Manitobans, and it was canceled. And at the time, I went to my president and I said, look, this is not good. Our people don't even have a small chance to get anything now because it's just been canceled. I think it was under Pallister at the time. And so we did some research, and we were able to set aside a certain amount of money. The need is huge. Like, we've got waiting lists that are, I wish we could get to everyone a lot faster, but at the same time, we're making a difference on a lot of people and where they live. And the second thing that I think is really important is Métis employment. So when we're doing these repairs, if it's in Dauphin or Thompson or St. Anne, we have a list of Métis contractors. If there's none available, obviously we'll figure something else out. But it really helps those small Métis contractors. If you, are a plumber, electrician, Red Seal, whatever you are, and if you do good work, we're going to keep on hiring you. And that's the incentive that you can find. You can find employment, and then we are reinvesting in the economy and reinvesting in our people. If they need to get some tools, we've got small micro loans for that as well. So just trying to find these little holes that might be out there and trying to fill them, backstop them, helping the people get their homes repaired and helping citizens with employment and jobs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that's in the south and the north, but it's also available for people in Winnipeg as
Absolutely.
well, right?
Yeah. Winnipeg is probably is the biggest city in Manitoba, has more Métis people living here than anywhere else. So
right.
Yeah, absolutely. We have lots of work happening all throughout the year here in Winnipeg for sure. Yeah.
Amazing. And you mentioned it's a forgivable loan,
right?
Meaning it's essentially a grant,
right,
as long as they meet the right criteria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for the repairs program, it is forgivable over 5 years. It's structured that way. So let's say somebody, gets $18,000 invested in their home, and they 2 weeks later they flip it and they
Right. So they can't sell it or
they
anything
can't
like that.
sell it.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so if they do, like life happens, then it's prorated. So if you've been there for 2.5 years, we prorate it.
Okay.
But you know, we hope that you're going to be staying there for a while. But
Yeah.
everybody's life circumstances change. You never know what's going to happen.
For sure.
So it's that's part of it for sure. Is that forgivable part? And yeah, if you've been there for 5 years, then we will write that loan off for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So that's a great program. Another great program I wanted to talk about was the first time home purchasing program.
Yeah.
And the reason I want to bring this up is because obviously I think it directly impacts accessibility, right? People that may not be able to afford a home, this can get them in the door. I've had firsthand experience with this, or sorry, I shouldn't say firsthand, but my wife's brother, so my brother-in-law, worked landscaping for a number of years, could afford his rent, but never afford to save up for a down payment for a house. We introduced him to this program. You know, a year later, he's living in a house. His mortgage is cheaper than what his rent was before.
Yeah.
And it's been a total like life-changing thing for him
Yeah.
to get access to. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was around $18,000 to $20,000 the down payment.
Yeah.
Plus, it was like another $2,000 or $3,000 towards his closing costs.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was over $20,000 that they were able to contribute to him, and now he's a homeowner.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what? I think I'm the next time we do a promo, I'm going to get you to come in and you can help me facilitate the program, because that's exactly what we're looking at, and give credit to the President Chartrand for this the way that he structured it. You know, there was I think the federal government had a first-time home purchase program several years ago, and it lasted like a year because the criteria and the way they were doing it didn't work. And there's other Métis groups in Saskatchewan and BC, I think, that are doing the same thing, but they have less than half the success that we've got. Yeah, it's $18,000, and then I think up to $2,500 for, you know, lawyers' fees, closing costs, those kinds of things. And we have this program is run through our Louis Riel Capital Corporation, which is like our financial institution, and it was best for them to do it because you're dealing with financial instruments. You know, they're working with the larger banks and credit unions, you know, on a day-to-day basis, where people are going to be accessing the mortgages, and they're doing a fantastic job. And I don't know the latest number. I'm going to have to get that soon, because we're having our annual assembly in the middle of October. But I believe there's close to 1,500 families that have actually purchased a home. And you know, I like talking about this program because there's some big numbers up there, but it also gets close to your heart. So you think about, this is houses, it's bricks and mortar, but it's more than that. It's about a family now with young children, and a lot of the first-time home buyers are, young families, young people, and you know, now they've got a home of their own. You know, they've got a safe, warm, dry place for their kids to grow up. They've got a backyard. You know, they can live close to a school, and all the things that others take for granted, that a lot of our communities didn't have for many years and many generations. But close to 1,500 homes. My understanding is that it's 280 million in mortgages, give or take.
Wow.
Another 50, 60, 70 million in economic spin-offs, because you need to buy a lawnmower, you need to buy furniture, you know, your fridge, and all the things that come with the home. So those spin-offs that are there, and so like over $300 million in economic output, you know, that I think we need to talk about more often. And then 1,500 families who are safe, and where they can have that head start. Now, one of the things the president talks about, and I mentioned this earlier, when we joined Canada, when Manitoba joined the country under the leadership of Louis Riel, well, there were certain promises that were made. And one of the promises was the land set aside for the children, but also the land where the families lived. And one of the ideas that Riel and his government had was to have that head start so that we wouldn't be put off the land that we had lived on for generations. And that's what that Manitoba Act represented, the economic head start. Of course, with the Prime Minister of the day breaking his promises, that head start didn't happen. We use an example of the Mennonite people, and I'm not hopefully racist. My mom's Mennonite, so I'm half Mennonite. But you look at what they did, and they were very successful. So there was land that was set aside for them in the early years of the province, around the Morden, Winkler, Steinbach areas. Yep. It was called the Mennonite Reserve or something. Not like a First Nations reserve, but there was like 500 and some thousand acres that were set aside for them, and they could live in their communities, they could speak their language, they could do their business, they could go to church, they could be together. And that's something that we never had the opportunity to speak our language, to live in our communities, to protect our land, but they did. And now you look at where they are in terms of the stature, in terms of their economic power in Manitoba. It's very, very high. Like there's premiers, there's judges, there's lawyers, there's doctors, and that's been for generations. Don't get me wrong, like in those early days, I'm sure it was very hard eking out a living, but they were able to stay together. They were able to be who they were. And now this first-time home buyers could never replace what was taken from us back then, but it is an economic head start.
Yeah.
It's that head start now where the next generation will be able to go to university and beyond and go to medical school because the parents are building that generational wealth that can be passed on where they never had the chance to before.
Right.
So that's a huge symbolic thing, but also a real economic thing as well.
Oh, absolutely. One more follow-up question on that first-time home plan, purchase plan. Is there an opportunity, maybe this is down the road, I'm not sure, but is there an opportunity, just because we have so many houses, and part of the housing crisis is like we need more homes as well, right? Is there an opportunity for somebody who's Métis to maybe get a loan for building on a property?
Yes.
I don't know if that's in play already, or maybe it's in the cards for the future.
That's something I think that we need to flesh out a little bit more, but there have been homes that have been built.
Okay. With that forgivable
as you know,
loan.
like a builder's mortgage is a little bit different than buying getting a mortgage on an existing home. And honestly, that's something that we need to make sure, because that is, you're absolutely right, that we need this country needs more housing units, period, right across. And that is part of the solution, I think. Absolutely. But one of the other things I just wanted to quickly mention is that we are doing most of this in Manitoba, but our citizens live outside of Manitoba as well.
Right.
And although it's not as easy as snapping your fingers and saying, I'm going to give first-time home buyers a loan to somebody in Saskatoon or Calgary, we are working on those things.
Okay.
And it's important because our citizens who live in Calgary should have access to the same programming and things that are available here in Manitoba. It's as you know, there's financial regulations that are different in every province, and you just have to make sure that you're doing the things properly. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So with like Truth and Reconciliation Day is just right around the corner here, right? Yeah. And I'm curious, like just for our listeners, like I feel like there's a lot of people that obviously it's a national holiday now, right? So they know what it is, but they may not even know like where to start. Right. Like what do you feel like could be like one actionable item that people could do for Truth and Reconciliation Day that might actually make like a meaningful difference for the Métis people?
Yeah, it's I was speaking at the Brandon Chamber of Commerce a couple days ago, and it was on the topic of economic reconciliation.
Mm-hmm.
And there's lots of things that I think people can do, but at a individual level, or maybe at a company level, um, hire Métis citizens. So if you think that you want to, if you're in construction, you need somebody who can drive a forklift. Look for the Métis person.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a lot of issues happening right now, with Donald Trump in the United States, with they're closing down the diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's almost a dirty word down there. But those kinds of things will help. So then, that person will go home. They'll be able to pay rent or pay the mortgage. Their family will have food on the table. Groceries are crazy expensive now. So hiring people, I think, is one of the things that I think not a lot of people would think about. But I think it would make a difference in if one person does it, you're helping one family. If there's 100 people out there who are listening do it, then there's 100 families that you're making a huge difference with.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's great from like the corporation level, and maybe from like the individual or personal level. Like you had mentioned earlier, there's lists and vendor lists of like
Right.
Métis owned businesses.
Yeah.
Right. Where it's like, if you're going to hire a plumber, look for that first, right?
Yeah.
If you need to replace a window,
Yeah.
A company that does that's Métis focused. So great examples of items, I guess, that you could take care of, not just at this time of year, but anytime, really.
Yeah, exactly. There's obviously lots of artisans out there, and the beadwork out there is amazing right now. But like you said, the people who are just doing their everyday job, and I think another. We see a lot of symbolic gestures, land acknowledgments, stuff like that. In this day and age, I mentioned Trump earlier. There's some leaning towards going back to being okay with being racist. That's not okay. If your friend, your uncles who had a couple too many beers says something, you don't have to be mean and rude to them, but you can say, "Look, uncle, what you just said is not okay." Those kinds of things make a difference, because a lot of people are emboldened to say something stupid these days, because there's stupid people in power in different places in the world, and that I think we need to bring it down to the level of where we are. Racism, bigotry, it really, really bothers me. Sometimes I lose sleep at night over it, and maybe sometimes I don't handle it as well as I should. But at the same time, we need to. Our world needs to keep evolving. We need to keep moving forward. We need to be more accepting. We need to have places for everybody in this world. And the only way to do that is to, see each other as important, see each other as human beings who have issues, but also have great strengths and skills as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned back in, I think it was 1996, the MMF had 3 employees.
Right.
Today it's like over 1,300, I think
Yeah,
you said.
yeah.
Like, that's tremendous growth.
Yeah.
Now, where do you see MMF in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years? Like, what do you feel like is your vision anyway?
Yeah, so I'm fortunate. I get to sit in on meetings where the president is talking to certain people, movers and shakers, and I can. When we first started building houses, I use that as an example. It was like duplexes and triplexes, and then we moved up to the 49 units in Selkirk, and we're looking at 60 plus on Henderson Highway. We're looking at 100 on Portage. So I think, those ways of doing things are just going to be that much more. I think we also can look at what's happening in the downtown, with the different properties that are being purchased, renovated, being brought back to the public for, either rental or business properties. That I think is making a difference in where we're going, and I see that happening at a level that things are happening even right now that aren't clear to those of us who aren't on the inside, and I think we'll just see some big changes. One of the things that has always been important to President Chartrand is sustainability. So, when I'm getting funding from the province or the federal government, and I'm putting monies into properties or buildings, what's the sustainability of that? Like the long term, we make sure that there is, a reserve and a maintenance fund for even for a duplex, let alone a big apartment building. But that sustainability and sort of the business planning of it, because politics changes, people, things shift. It happens, and politics is a little volatile these days all over the place. And, so I think that's going to help us ride out if there's any rough waters that happen in the next 3 to 5 years, or 10 years. I think we've got investments that will allow us to, we may have to hunker down, but the programming that we're delivering for students, for bursaries, for healthcare, for seniors, for the important things, the housing that is happening for our seniors as well, and everything right across the board. That sustainability message is so important, because if there is something that happens, we will survive.
Yeah.
And we will still be there.
Right. Yeah, weather the storm, right? Yeah, anybody can steer the boat when it's calm waters, right? But it's when the storm comes who can do it. So, yeah, I agree. The sustainability is very important. One of the things you mentioned earlier is, like, obviously you're a cabinet for MMF, but you're also a business owner.
Yeah.
Like, two demanding roles.
Yeah. A couple more things than that too. So,
yeah, tell me.
Well, there's unfortunately, maybe I'll just back up a little bit, the structure of the MMF. So we have 7 regions,
right?
And there's 3 people who are elected to represent each region. So that makes 21. There's a vice president who basically looks after the administrative side of the region, whether it's program delivery, keeping the office going. We have an office in Brandon. We have some satellite offices in Russell and one in Portage. Unfortunately, one of my colleagues passed, Minister John Fleury. I've known him, been friends with him for decades.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, he passed suddenly earlier this year. And then our vice president has been dealing with medical issues as well. So I've been doing all the regional work. The Minister of Housing, now this new Ministry of Identity Protection. Yeah, and I've got a big, I don't like living in the city. So we lived outside of Brandon for now over 20 years, and I've got a big yard. My favorite thing to do is to mow the lawn, but it takes me several hours. But yeah, I have a couple of small businesses. Started with my dad. There's the one in Boissevain called the Canadian Wilderness Inn. My dad loved wildlife. I must have drove my mom crazy. He's passed now almost 4 years, but in their house he had deer and bear and elk, and he's just like. And so then he moved some of that stuff into a museum in Boissevain, which the town has since taken management over. But this Wilderness Inn is similar. It's like got a log house facade. The themes are all wildlife. And then we also have another similar one in Killarney, and it's located right beside the big complex with the curling and hockey, and
Right.
they're both, I wouldn't say they're huge money makers, but they provide a service in the community, and I enjoy getting out there and doing that kind of thing too, mowing the lawn there too. So,
Yeah. That's funny. You had mentioned earlier you had gone through a hostile takeover
Right.
in business.
Yeah.
Was that related to one of those businesses or something different?
Well, it was different. So just maybe I love talking about my dad, so I can maybe go back a little bit. So my dad, as I said, he grew up in the Turtle Mountains in the bush in a log house.
Yep.
He dropped out of school in grade 7. Two of the things that they did to earn a little bit of money was trapping and selling fence posts. So, they would go in the bush and chop small oak trees down for fence posts, and then go and drive around to the different farmers and sell them, make a little bit of money. Trapping, the same thing. Dad eventually turned that into a small sawmill up in the Turtle Mountains, and from there, and I think it was 1963, he had some extra lumber, and he built 3 barns at that time. And then his business, Goodon Industries, was born. And over the years, he moved eventually to Boissevain, built a yard there. I remember sweeping out the shop as a young kid, helping my uncle build rafters. But then when my dad took on a partner, and they did very well together. When my son, I mentioned my son got sick, so he had leukemia when he was 2.5 years old. It was a hard time at the time. We were actually moving to Boston. I had been accepted to Harvard Business School for my MBA program, and we were, I think it was August of 2000. August of 2000, and we were leaving on the Monday. We had sold our house. My wife worked for the province at the time. She had quit her job. Obviously, I quit my job. I was working at the MMF, and Hunter was diagnosed on the Friday before we were moving, and our world was upside down. I got a 1-year leave from Harvard, and I had a second-year leave, and my dad asked me if I wanted to join the business. There was 2 other partners had come in at that time, so there was 4, and it was difficult, at the time, dealing with a lot of family issues. I dealt with a lot of personal issues. Had some depression at the time. I abused alcohol for a little while there, and there was a lot of things that were going on, and just trying to keep our family going. It was horrible. If 3 or 4, I can't remember how many, 3 or 4 or 5 years in, the 2 younger of the partners, not my dad's original partner, but the 2 younger ones, saw an opportunity, and they pushed out me and my dad. Wasn't you look back, and obviously a learning experience. You can't change anything. If it happened again, I would do things very differently. But you don't know everything, and it was emotional because it was my dad's business. But I think life has a way of working out, and I so much enjoy what I'm doing right now. I'm not making millions and millions of dollars like that company made, but I'm helping hundreds and hundreds of people,
No doubt.
and making a difference in their lives as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's not all about the money, right? I mean, you're making such an impactful thing in not only your community, but in communities all around Manitoba and
Yeah.
other Métis communities outside of the province as well.
Yeah.
Plus, I can just tell from talking to you like how passionate you are about what you do and how
Yeah.
much you enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
With the MMF, so that's important. Did you ever like? Not that you needed it, but did you ever end up going back to Harvard for the MBA?
No,
No?
we never did. It's,
Well, I mean, MMF going from 3 to 1,300 employees,
Yeah.
scaling, an organization to
Yeah.
that size. It sounds like you probably got more experience in that time than you would ever get from an MBA anyway.
Yeah, yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely. I would think so too. But one really cool coincidence, I guess. So my son, as I said, he's now an emergency doctor. He went to school at U of M, but he was accepted to, I think, 5 schools in Canada. He was also interviewed at Harvard. So we went down to Harvard, and he interviewed at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, and he was shortlisted at Johns Hopkins. He is the kind of guy who likes his friends, likes his family. He could have gone to Toronto, Vancouver, wherever he wanted. He stayed at U of M, and he wants to stay and be a doc here in Winnipeg. So,
Wow.
that's the kind of people we need in Manitoba for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So if we could take the will from 1996 and have him look at the will today, like how proud do you think the younger version of you would be seeing, the impact you've made and like, the life that you've carved out here doing what you've done?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we are all the product of life and what we've gone through. The choices that we make, choices are often thrust upon us, and we have to work with those. And choices that we make that are not good for us, that make that hurt others. And so I no regrets, because I am who I am because of those journeys. But that guy was probably a little bit too big for his britches. He probably thought he was smarter than what he actually was. But I think considering the journey, I think that he would be happy with where we are right now. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It sounds like in your life, man, that you've gone through a lot of adversity, and I feel like real leaders are the ones that had to fight through that stuff.
Yeah.
In order to be able to provide that perspective to not only them but the people that they're mentoring, both horizontally and vertically.
I agree 100%. I speak at schools a lot of times to students, Métis, non-Indigenous, and this is one of the things that I tell them, and I'm so fortunate is to have had some elders in my life who just took the time. And sometimes you're just sitting there having a coffee, and sometimes they're giving you something really deep and powerful and precious. And whether that's obviously my dad, my uncle Ernie, is just a really cool guy. Senator Ed Head, he was past president of the MMF, but he took some time with me, and there's been others all along the way as well. And that's for me, that's one of the things I tell kids. I don't know if they listen or not, but you know what? If you got time to sit with your uncle, with your grandma, your grandpa, or somebody in the community who is that has wisdom, do it now, because you might not have a chance. They could be gone in a week.
Absolutely.
And that's that's something I think about a lot. So,
Yeah, that's so true. And I think it's the smart ones that listen and take that advice.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I was not one of those kids.
no, right?
I wasn't, because for me, wisdom always came to me after I needed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I always had to learn lessons the hard way.
After you made that mistake and stepped in the big pile of crap.
Exactly,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. There was nothing no wisdom I listened to before that would prevent that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But you know what? Learning the hard way sometimes is the way you just got to do it.
Yeah.
Because, if you're learning correctly, that means you're never going to do that again.
Yeah, yeah,
So-
exactly. Yeah, I look at, my dad was a businessman, made lots of money, but then I look at his hands, and there's scars from where he's holding a wrench where it slipped, and there's like, that's the kind of thing I think that we all, need to understand, and that's the lessons you learn. Next time, maybe wear a pair of gloves or something.
right. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, Will, thank you so much for joining us today on Careers Under Construction. It's been a pleasure, and we definitely have a lot more to talk about, so we'll be having a round 2 sometime soon.
That will be amazing, and love your location. Love the conversation. It's been very good for me as well. Thinking out loud about some of these things is helpful for us, and it did for me. And I hope your listeners get a little bit out of this. And yeah, let's do it again.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Right on.
Another episode in the books.